So in this video, I'm going to talk about remote ID and its consequences that will be a disaster for the FPV community. So in this video, I'm going to go over what remote ID is, why it's not well thought out, and what you can do about it. And you might be wondering, why am I making a video about this? Isn't this an RC car and boat channel? Well, yes, but we need to get the word out to help our brothers in the drone community as much as possible. And if I can use my platform to do it, I'm going to do it. Also, China are just copy and pasting remote ID, Part 107 and registration directly into their law, so this affects me now. So what is remote ID? Remote ID is a new FAA law requiring all registered drones to carry a remote ID broadcast unit that reports information on the drone's location and their pilot's location. Compliance day is September 2023, so you will need to be using a remote ID after this if you are in the United States. So the FAA says this is required to promote the safe operation of drones. This is very important, as I'm sure you're aware of all the deaths that are caused annually by recreational drones. So there will be 3 ways to comply with remote ID. Fly a drone which already has remote ID. This is like your DJI or your typical camera drone. These are already coming out with the ability to broadcast their position and information, so that won't be too difficult to implement. The second way is for your typical self-built drone, so your freestyle and racing drone. You will need to install a remote ID module by yourself to your drone, and then you're still limited to direct line of sight operation only. The third way is to fly in an FAA recognised area, but as of right now, none of these freers have actually been approved. So if you think your local AMA airfield is just going to be a freer, well, that's yet to be seen. So why is remote ID a bad idea? Okay, so I'm going to start with some non-doomer stuff, so I'm going to get this out of the way first. For most pilots, it's going to be easy to implement remote ID on their drones. Now, before you get the pitchforks out, I still think remote ID is completely unnecessary for recreational, freestyle and racing drones. I'll put that figure of the amount of people killed yearly by recreational drones on the screen again. Now, I agree with Bot Grinder's video on this. I can sort of see the point of remote ID on DJI style drones, camera drones, that kind of thing. Drones that have GPS installed in them already, have flight modes, that are travelling very far away from their operators on autopilot. You could maybe understand the argument for remote ID on these. And let's be honest with ourselves here, when you see headlines like this, we all know they're not talking about freestyle and racing pilots. But then why should a freestyle and racing pilot have to comply with this? I don't know if the FAA have ever seen a freestyle or racing pilot fly, but they're usually no more than 20 feet off the ground and are constantly staying within a small area. Why do you need remote ID for this situation? If you looked up the flight data on your typical freestyle or racing session, it's just going to look insane. Now, below 250 gram won't need to comply with remote ID under normal circumstances, so your recreational tiny whoop is safe. However, if you operate under Part 107, and let me remind you that includes all commercial drone operation where you intend to make money, which also includes racing where there is a prize, you will need to have remote ID. So if you operate your 250 gram drone commercially, you're going to need remote ID. That means if you upload stuff to YouTube, you're going to need a remote ID, no matter how light your drone is. If you race your drone and there is a cash prize for that race, that's automatically Part 107, and you're going to need remote ID, even if you're sub 250. And I'm not sure I have to tell you how much effort already goes into getting weight down for drone racing, and now the FAA is telling everyone they're going to need to add more weight to their racing drones to comply with this stupid law. But China expats RC, I hear you say. The FAA said you won't need remote ID if you operate in an area that they approve, so I'm just going to get my local area approved as a freer. Well, unfortunately they haven't approved a single freer yet, not a single one. So the way remote ID will work is there's going to be an app that you can use. It's going to be completely open to the public, and it will display the location of all the drones in the area and their pilots. So immediately that raises alarm bells for me. What's to stop some bad actor using this to find a drone pilot and rob them? You know, drone pilots typically, they're going to have expensive equipment on them, they're going to be distracted with the goggles on their face. It seems like a good target to rob. So where does this leave us? Well, remote ID is right around the corner, with compliance date being September 2023. Now, I'm not going to give you any advice here on if you should comply with remote ID or you should not comply. That's going to be your personal decision. If you do want some more information about remote ID and learn about the efforts that are going into fighting it and making the drone hobby more accessible for all, you can check out the FPV Freedom Coalition, and I will link their Discord in the description below. A lot of great guys on there, and they answered all my stupid questions when I was researching this video, so go check them out. I know most of my audience are interested in RC cars and RC boats, but I do know there are a few of you FPV guys watching, and we've all got to stick together on this. So I hope I've shone a light on remote ID here today. That's all from me. If you did like the video, you can subscribe, like, and all that jazz, and I'll see you next time in your notifications tab.